I came known as the Facebook ad guy. Most of my professional life, running Facebook ads, teaching Facebook ads, speaking at the biggest events about Facebook ads, and now I was banned by Facebook with no recourse. I started doing TikTok content organically. If you're not using TikTok, the app, organically on a daily basis, you're gonna really struggle running ads there. I need to put out more content. I need to be omnipresent. And if I do that, we're gonna make a lot more money.
This is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, where I have conversations with people doing at least $1 million or more off the back of content. Now, today I've got with me a guest, and this is one of those stories that, you might hear somebody say like in some kind of sales copy. We're hanging out at this party and, we're having some drinks and I ran into this guy, and that's exactly what happened. I think it was it San Diego or was it Austin? I can't remember.
It was San Diego.
It was San Diego? Okay, it was San Diego, right? And when you said, I have a TikTok channel, I was like, okay, great. And I went and looked you up and I was like, okay, now I'm automatically thinking this guy needs to be on the podcast, because I've had a lot of people who have huge followings on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and are figuring out how to channel all that to make business sense, right? Like to bring people into their businesses, but nobody who's primarily on TikTok. So this is, I think you might be the first, and I really want to hear your story. So Max Finn, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, man. And it's a lot. We had multiple attempts to make this work, and I'm glad we finally got it to work. It was a few last minute cancellations on my part, just a lot of bad luck, and we locked it down. We got on here, and we're gonna have a great time.
We absolutely are. So Max, give us a quick 30,000 foot view. What is your business? Who do you help? What do you do for them? And how do you help? Sorry, who do you help and how do you help them?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Right now we have three. I'm involved in a lot of businesses. So my partner Jeremy and I, we do a lot of deals. Three primary businesses. So we have Unicorn Innovations, which is a education info product business. So we have communities, we have recurring revenue around different membership programs. We have courses, trainings, high ticket, all around marketing education primarily. We have Unicorn Traffic, which is a performance marketing agency. So essentially we work with 9-figure brands. We actually front the ad spend, and we get compensated on a CPA or CPL basis. And that's just an awesome business. And we can talk probably for a long time about why I think performance marketing is better than traditional retainer agencies, all that good stuff. But that's maybe another time. And then we have a portfolio of e-com properties, content sites, and newsletters. Actually, in the political space, that's another probably 2-hour podcast. We could just talk all about that, because that's a wild story how we ended up in that space. So those are the three primary buckets, three primary businesses that I'm involved in. And then I, do consulting, coaching, invest in different businesses. I'm on the board of a few different companies. But Unicorn Innovations, Unicorn Traffic, and Hero are three primary companies right now.
Okay. Now you look pretty young to have, to be running three businesses. Would you be okay sharing how old you are and when did this all start?
I also I just shaved right before we went on. So that helped a little bit. I was a little scruffier before. So that takes a few years off. Now I'm 33. I'll be 34 in a month. So I definitely, I think, look younger, but married, have a 3-year-old. So I definitely feel a lot older than I look sometimes, I think.
People usually peg me about 10 years younger than I am too. So yeah, and the other thing that happens is because I meet most people virtually and not in person, then when I meet them in person, finally, they're just like, oh, damn, you're really short. You can't tell how tall people are on Zoom, right?
It's Tom Cruise, right? The Tom Cruise effect.
Yeah. There we go. The Tom Cruise effect. Okay, cool. So you've got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of our listeners might be like, well, that's amazing. However, right now I'm just trying to figure out how to make my first dollar online. Could you take us back to before you ever started this? Like, what was the trigger that started this? What were you doing before you ever got into any kind of online business?
I mean, transparently, this is all I've ever done. So I'm very lucky in the sense that I come from a entrepreneurial family. My grandpa was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. So I got this really unique perspective in what life is like as a business owner entrepreneur. It's very unusual. Most entrepreneurs don't have that, right? They just kind of figure it out on their own and they think, I'm just going to do this. So I really knew from an early age that like, this is my path. I didn't know exactly what it would be. right? I didn't know what market it would be, what industry it would be, what the idea would be, but I knew like I'm going to build my own thing and I'm going to make my own path, and I can't do the 9 to 5 thing. Now, of course, like high school, college, I worked the typical crappy jobs, right? I think it's important to actually have those, like, working 14-hour days at a deli and things like that. I think it builds character. But starting in college, started my first company, my senior year in college, and haven't looked back since. It was a event. We did the venture back tech thing. So it was a software company, raised a good amount of money around it, uh, ran that for 2.5 years, ended up failing. And that's a, you know, whole podcast on just failure. And I think all things that are broken on Silicon Valley model, and focusing on growth at all costs and not revenue. But towards the tail end of that, I was like, this is really stressful. Building a tech startup where your bank account balance goes one way every day for years is really, really stressful, where you just need to keep raising money to keep going. And so towards the end of that, I started hearing about, it's about 12 years ago, I started hearing about this, drop shipping thing, and Facebook ads were just really starting, and Shopify and all this stuff was just kind of really starting to enter the kind of early adopter awareness sphere. And so I was like, I remember meeting a buddy of mine. I was like, he told me about this way to do t-shirts and print on demand, where you could like sell t-shirts, but not actually order them, and you can just send them right to the customer. And I was like, that sounds really cool. So I started my first e-commerce store. It was called Startup Drugs. And it was basically an apparel brand, t-shirt brand, that we just poked fun at entrepreneurship. It was like none of the hard, it was like there were some inspirational, motivational brands. We were like the anti. We were all like, burning VC cash like it's my job. We were doing, it was like fun stuff, right? That entrepreneurs got. And it did really well. And it was a really cool experience. It kind of tapped me into Facebook ads as a growth there. We had customers like the Miami Dolphins placed orders. That's the first time I met Russell Brunson. Russell bought a bunch of stuff. I actually ended up selling the business to Russell. Russell owns it now. And it gave me a really unique perspective into e-commerce, digital marketing. And that's where I started Facebook ads. Kind of flash forward a few years into that, I met my current partner, Jeremy, and he was doing a deal with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. And as seen on TV, the infomercial that he invented and just sold, $6 billion on TV. And Kevin was just starting to build his digital presence, and was like, hey guys, I get all this deal flow, and you guys are the marketing guys. Like, what if we started an agency together? So we started a company called Quantum Media. We ran that for 2 years, multi-office, full service agency, worked with the 3Ms and Sam's Clubs of the world, also worked with dozens and dozens of product companies that Kevin would invest in, Shark Tank style companies. And that really put me down the path of, direct response marketing, digital marketing, paid ads. It also gave me a peek behind kind of the content side of it, the personal brand side of it through Kevin. Got to see the power of a personal brand. That's when we met, Grant Cardone and guys like that. When 10X GrowthCon was first starting, Kevin spoke there. So really got to see a lot of these guys as they were, Grant was already kind of big, Kevin was big, but like really see them early on this massive growth spike. And then I've known them for, years since then. And I've over those last, 8 years since starting Quantum, now with Unicorn, we started 5 years ago, I've gotten to meet and get to build relationships with pretty much all the biggest people in the industry, and see how integral personal brand and content was in being successful. And knew it's like, hey, I need to start doing this, right? It's
Got it.
You can't separate the two.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Now, I've seen a lot of people who've gone into agency work and just stayed there. What do you think is different about you? Because you seem to, like, you told me about how you started a business, sold it, started another one, exited it, sold a business to Russell Brunson. Why do you think some people start one business, stick with it forever? And there's a difference between those kind of people and you, who starts it, sells it, and or develops into something new.
Yeah, a great question. I think agencies, the reason why a lot of people get stuck in agencies is they can become a trap, in that it's a really easy business to start. Probably one of the best businesses. I recommend a lot of young kids when they come to me and say, like, what should I do? I said, well, starting an agency is probably the easiest thing to start, because it requires basically no money. You can just be good at something and you charge money for it. And it's a really easy way to get to 10K a month of income. Really, 2K a month per client, you get 5 clients, and that's pretty easy. You got a 120K a year business, and you can pretty much fulfill that on your own. The challenge is a lot of people get into this and they don't have a clear path of where they want to go. And they also have lifestyle creep. They don't invest in teams. They don't basically keep everything to themselves. So they don't build teams. They don't bring in leadership. And you get to a point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, but this is my only source of income. I can't sell it because agencies are very hard to sell. All that's changing. Some of my buddies, like Tom Shipley, is running this really great agency accelerate roll-up model. That's pretty interesting, but it's still pretty hard to sell. And if you sell it, it's not going to get a great multiple, and there's an earnout and lots of other things where you're still going to be working on it probably for a year or 2 years. So they get trapped, and there's no exit plan. So with us, it was like, one, we had this great boot camp with Kevin, getting to spend 2 years with Kevin and travel with him and be with him and be in all these deals and see the way he runs his business. Was incredibly beneficial and was a very unique experience. And so we got to see this thing where it's like, okay, this guy gets pieces of all these companies. He's in all these deals. And it's because he's built his expertise, his influence, his clout, his authority, and he's leveraging his relationship capital, his network, his authority to get pieces of deals. And he's not doing the day-to-day work. He's either just getting a piece of a company, or he's getting teams into other companies. And that was the big aha moment for us, was like, okay, we need to start building teams. We need to start treating these not just like cash flow business, but real businesses. Because it's like, once you get to a few million a year, you need to start being like, this is a real business. We can't run it like we ran when we were running 100,000 a year, 500,000 a year, $1 million a year. It just changes. And so all of our companies now have CEOs, they have C-suite, they have teams, they have HR, they have infrastructure. And so if I'm not there day to day, the business still runs. Still advise them, and still some of them are more active at different times, but they're real businesses. And that allows us to, if we want to sell a business, it's more sellable. If we want to go do something else, we can go do that because there's infrastructure there. And that was really the big differentiator. And most people just don't build that, and they get trapped.
Got it. So between running these businesses, and I love that thinking. And here's something kind of interesting: is Kevin Harrington is just in the last 2 or 3 months. Like I've known him forever, because we're in a mastermind called Board of Advisors out of Florida. But then I spoke to him 3 times recently, and then I met him at 3 different events. And one of my clients recently just did a deal with him, and because we do digital media as an agency, so this video feed is coming. I mean, they're sending us material, and they're working with Kevin Harrington. I'm just like, and then now you're on the show talking about him. I'm just like, what is going on here, Kevin? Like, I feel like I got pixeled somehow, and every day around
he is everywhere. Somehow,
yeah. No, that guy is a machine.
Yeah,
he's literally a machine, and the way his mind works is it moves so much faster than anybody I've actually had a long conversation with, and the way he can just compartmentalize, process, move on to the next thing is super, super impressive.
It really is.
So I think there is something that I need to do, because for some reason I just keep running into him in so many different scenarios. But putting that aside, you having all these responsibilities for different businesses, hiring, building teams, how did you decide that making videos on TikTok is a good use of your time? Like, what was that thinking process?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, for one, TikTok, the ad side of things came before the organic side of things. So it just, I got banned on Facebook, I don't know, 2.5 years ago.
Can you tell us why?
3 years ago. I still don't know. It's a boring, I tell this to everyone when I tell the story. It's like, I wish I had a more exciting story. It's not an exciting story. It's if anything, it's a story of it just, hopefully builds a little bit of fear in people, just so they can be a little more, plan a little more, because it could happen to anybody for any reason, without the ability to appeal and without giving a specific reason. And what you forget, and this is what I didn't realize until after it happened, is, I've been on Facebook since 2006. So my junior year in high school, I believe. Because I went to a private boarding school. And so our kind of these like Northeast boarding schools got it, because it went to the Ivy League colleges, and then it kind of went to some bigger colleges, and then it went to some of these elite high schools. So I've been on it for a very long time.
So you were on when Zuck was doing that controlled rollout thing between the schools, right?
So I was like had very early access to it. People don't realize it's like before there was actually the ability to write anything. It was because like in boarding schools and colleges, they had the thing called the Facebook, which was actually a physical book you'd get, which had everyone's like pictures and names in it and stuff. And like, that's basically what it was for a while. And they introduced poking and other things, but that's another conversation. But basically from graduating high school to having a baby, and getting married and all that stuff, part of most of my life was documented there. I had photos and messages and all this stuff. It's all gone. I don't have it. I never backed it. It just disappeared. Right. So what I tell everyone when I tell this story is like, back up your stuff, because you never know. Like, just, you can go on Facebook, you can back up all your data. Like, go do that after you watch a show, because it's you never know. It can have for any reason. But anyway, so I got banned, and it was pretty crazy because I spent most of my professional life running Facebook ads, teaching Facebook ads, speaking at the biggest events about Facebook ads, and now I was banned by Facebook with no recourse.
How did that feel? Like, what was your gut reaction when you realized, hey, this is not reversible?
Because
that's a lot of time putting into it, right? And the reason I'm saying this is because a client of mine, I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Peng Jun.
Yep.
But I remember when we were working on his campaigns, because I was doing his videos, we're over dinner, right? We're about to put a whole bunch of money down on a campaign. And he says, my biggest fear is that I'm investing so much on this platform, and what if they ban me? Like, that freaks me out, for whatever reason, like you explained. So for him, that was literally something that kept him up at night. Like, how can I make sure that I've got my eggs in various baskets?
Yeah, it's a very real fear. It happens to a lot of people. A lot, you hear about the big ones, you hear about the big, politicians or things. When that happens, that's like a big news story, but it happens every day to a lot of people. And most of the time it's for a totally wrong reason. And even if it was for a right reason, you're not given the reason, you're not given the ability to, there's no strike policy, which is, my viewpoint. I'm a pretty free market capitalist person. I believe, government should not be involved in business. However, I do believe that, like, a lot of these companies are so big, because everyone gives the argument, right? It's like, well, they're private companies, they can do whatever. It's like that logic used to work before some private companies had basically the entire world's population on them. And it became basically the place where the entire world's population conducted all their communication and business and commerce. So, like, Meta has over 3 billion users across all the apps. It's so big that they need to have it's almost like a utility at some point, right? Where it's like, my power company can't just turn my power off. Like, if I stop paying my bills, they can, but like, they can't just selectively say, like, we don't really like you, so we're just going to turn your power off. Right. So there's certain things where it's like, at a minimum, I think they should have a 3-strike policy. Twitter used to have kind of that, or YouTube has it, I believe. And there's an appeal process. But anyway, like, how did I feel? Angry, confused, frustrated. It was all those emotions in a short period of time. But then I'll tell you, like, I also felt a sense of relief and excitement, because what happens in this industry, in like the digital marketing world, is you become kind of pigeonholed really quickly, and you have to. So it's almost like when you come out of you're new and you're just getting started in building something, especially if you're in the info product world, the education world, it's much easier to become known as, you're the Facebook ad guy, as opposed to, like, the business guy, or like what Alex Hormozy now is. Like, that's much harder to achieve that level, of Grant Cardone or Kevin, like, where you're just a macro level influencer on all things business. Like, that's such a harder thing to achieve, because it's so much more competitive. It's much easier to become the Facebook ad guy or the YouTube ad girl, or
that's what everybody says, niche down when you're starting out, right? It is easier to start. Yeah,
it is. Sure. But the problem though is then you become kind of trapped and labeled in that. And for me, it's like, yeah, Facebook ads I like doing, and I was good at it, but like, I'm building businesses. I'm much more passionate about just macro level marketing. I love neuromarketing. I love behavioral economics, behavioral science, psychology. That fascinates me way more than just like Facebook ads or TikTok ads. And that's why a lot of my content's around that. But yeah, so I came known as the Facebook ad guy. And so part of me was like, this is kind of good, because it's going to force me to, like, I got to figure something else out. I can't personally run Facebook ads anymore. My team can. We still ran Facebook ads. I just personally couldn't do it. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore, because I don't do it. And at the same time that happened, it was really just serendipitous that TikTok they were just starting to open up their ad platform. One of our earliest reps of their Otho, he reached out to me and said, hey, I'd like to do a demo and show you what we're working on. And I hopped on a demo, and they showed us the ad platform, and I was like, this looks pretty cool. They were hiring a lot of people from Facebook and Google. And that really started us on TikTok and running ads there. So we started running ads there, and then eventually got to the point where people started asking me for advice. And I said, well, okay, I'm one of the people running ads here that's actually like doing it and spending a good amount, and I can talk about it. I know the education side of it, so I'm going to start teaching it. And so it made sense at a certain point to say, well, I need to start creating content here. And what I realized too is, and I tell this to all my students now on the ad side of things for TikTok, if you're not using TikTok, the app, organically on a daily basis, you're going to really struggle running ads there. You need to understand the organic side of it to understand the paid side of it, because it's really all comes down to creative nowadays. And so that's why I started doing TikTok content organically. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even I really wouldn't classify myself as a influencer or even really like a content creator. I don't put myself in that bucket really. For a long time, I tried to resist it because the challenge I've always had, and I'm sure you can relate to this to a degree, is like this balancing act of content. Because I know what to say and what to do if I wanted to go viral. If all I cared about was having every video get massive views and stuff, it is actually pretty easy. It's you do things that are crazy, outrageous. You make big. It's very very easy.
Yeah.
The
The one thing that you can do super easily, if you just want to get monetized for views, is just look at something outrageous someone did and one up them.
Yep.
That's all you got to do, and just keep doing that.
Yeah. So I've always dealt with this dilemma of like, I could do that, but my thing's always been quality. I'm a tactical person, and tactical stuff like that. The level of things that I talk about, one, it goes over a lot of people's heads, and two, it's just not. It's like it's not sexy stuff. So I've always struggled with like I put out content and like it's not going to hit because I just know it's like, and I know it going out of the gate. But then part of me is like, okay, I don't really care, because what I started realizing is when you see it in my IG stories and I see like, you can see who looks at your stories, right? It's like the people, and this is pre you could buy a check mark, but like pre that, like it was a lot of blue check marks. It's a lot of people that are the biggest people in our space. I get a lot of people that are huge influencers that have massive followings in our space that DM me and ask like, I should know my buddies actually is a massive influencer. Just DM me because I do so many videos about like neuromarketing and these really cool like cognitive bias videos and stuff about like, how William Sonoma sold bread makers and how Avis used like all these cool stories. And he's like, where do you get all these ideas? Like, what books do you read? Like, can you send me a list of books? I'm like, sure, here. So it's like, to me, that's more impactful. Like, if I have influence and clout with the people that have the large audiences, I'm cool with that. So that was kind of the logic for saying, well, okay, I know I may not be the biggest person creating content. I might not get, massive views on my videos, but I get the right views. And I started realizing the final thing here is like, I fought it for a long time doing the organic person because I was just a paid person. And it's a lot of work. It's a grind. It's hard to separate. It's hard to not take things personally. It's hard to not get those dopamine hits and the ups and downs because you post a video, gets 30,000 views, post one that gets 2,000 views. It's hard to not play that game. But I continue to be in rooms with people that say the exact same thing to me. So I was, Grant invited me back when there's traffic conversion last year. He invited like 30, 40 people to a little mastermind he held in San Diego at the same time. And everyone was all the biggest people in the room. And he was sharing a graph that showed, here's my net worth, here's my business revenue, my income, all the financials. And then here's my social growth. Here's my follower growth. Here's the volume of content. And it was a 1-for-1 match. As he put out more content, as his following grew, his business grew. Alex Hormozy, same thing. He actually paid Grant, and Grant told him, he said, you need to put out more content. And so he started putting out a lot more content, and look what he's absolutely blown up. He's a celebrity. He goes in Vegas, he gets recognized everywhere he goes, right? So I realized like, I need to put out more content. Even though it doesn't go viral, it's like, I need to put out more content. I need to be omnipresent. And if I do that, we're going to make a lot more money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, how can I put out even more content and get there faster? Tell me, what's the, like, there is the principle of putting out more content, becoming more known, building authority, and that's helping your business. But is there a logical connection between what you do with your online free content, and do you have a simple system that, like, well, for lack of a better word, funnel that gets people the opportunity to work with you, for example? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something we're actively working on right now. We've just been hiring more people to help build this out. That's why, like, we just brought on a great great woman who's working on our team that's managing our social, my social. And now we're doing, 3 posts a day right now, which is great. We're going to ramp up to probably 5 posts a day. So I went from like being able to do maybe 1 post a day or like 5 posts a week, now 3 posts a day, which is across all channels, which is amazing. And so the next path is, having different automations. So the easiest thing to do, right, is like set up different automation flows in Instagram, for example, where, DMing certain keywords, commenting certain keywords triggers certain automation flows. So, hey, if like we have our social trends app, which gives, amazing intro hook ideas for videos. We have an amazing weekly report we send out, all this great stuff. And so if we want to share every day, one of the things we're going to do is share like a hook of the day, a ad idea of the day, just different text-based posts, and say, hey, if you want, 900 other hooks and you want X, Y, and Z, DM us the word hooks. Cool. They DM it, triggers a response, says, hey, check out our special deal. So there's a lot of stuff you can do there. Setters are great. So we have our high ticket program, and basically a setter is the person between when the lead becomes a lead and the salesperson. So they're kind of in between. They help really get them, make sure they're ready for their call, do some due diligence on them, warm them up a little bit, get their objections so they can pass that along to the salesperson so they can close them in high ticket. We're getting our setters into the inboxes so they can start working leads in there, people DMing, reaching out to people, doing outreach. And then the lowest hanging fruit is like your link tree, right? So link in bios. We're going through that again too. It's like having really good bio descriptions, really good, clear reason to click this link. And then within that link, having just our best, well thought out offers and places we can take somebody based on what they need.
Could you share, like, in a nutshell, like what's your advice around optimizing the bio?
I may need advice on that. It's because we're honestly transparent. Like we're working on that right now. So it's,
okay, got it.
We're working on that right now.
When you work on it, are you like testing different iterations and seeing how it works, or just really, really thinking hard through the psychology and then and then launching it?
So we've been testing. I would say my biggest takeaway from this process of doing a lot of studying and people that I respect, I know do very, very large volume organically, is specificity and clarity, right? So it's like not having too many things in there because it's distraction. So it's like the guys that I know that are doing the biggest numbers, that are doing $100,000, $1 million a month through organic, it's really clear. You go to all their bios and all their channels, and it's like, have helped 100,000 plus people build 6-figure incomes to YouTube automation. If you want to learn how to start YouTube automation, click here. Like really, really clear. And that's such a random example, but it's like, if I hit them, I know this is specifically what and all their content's around that. So this is specifically what their expertise is. This is specifically what they do. This is who they helped. And this is where I go. And so specificity and reducing options and confusion and thinking, right? Because the last thing you want to do is make people think. People do not want to think. Everyone can think they can do it. They just don't want to do it. And so the more options you give people, the more they have to connect the dots of like, okay, they say they're good at this, but like, what's actually going to be the link? What's actually the offer? People just abandon that process and they just stop. They stop doing it. I would say the final thing also is like the words you use and the positioning. So for us, for example, instead of just saying like, for me, it's like, I help people run ads. It's like, well, the bigger thing is like, I'm an investor and I'm an advisor, a paid traffic advisor. So it's like using words that are more aspirational because everybody wants investments in their business. Everyone wants an advisor, a mentor, an investor. Like these are things people want. And so using words in your bio that are the most kind of high profile, that are going to get people's attention. So when you get an outreach from them, the first thing they see is like, oh, investor, advisor. It just gives you another level up. You're not just like a sales. You're not going to try to sell them something. You're not somebody just like pitching something. It's just a different
another agency. Yeah. Plugging up their DMs. Right?
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with all that. I love that. And one thing I'm doing is, I'm in several masterminds, and I like the ones where everybody has to be transparent and actually show what their numbers are. Like, what's the revenue? What's the profit margin? How many hours are they spending in their work and stuff? And instead of going to, hire an expert to teach me how to do this stuff, I literally just go through people's profiles and look at what are they posting, how often are they posting, where are they posting, what are they talking about, how is everything formatted based on the numbers I know that they have that it generates. And then for me, that's like the quickest shortcut, because a lot of people can make advice sound really clever and really attractive and really easy. But that's what they're in the business for, is selling advice. But then people who actually have results, I'm just like, I'll just, the best advice is just watch and learn, and then duplicate that for my clients.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest challenge with content, right? It's like, it's so easy for anybody to have a voice, which is an amazing thing. Everyone can create content. Everyone can share everything. There's no filtering. There's no, like somebody putting a badge on somebody's profile saying this person's full of shit or this person's legit. Like, it just, you don't know. And there's some people are just better at speaking. Some people are better at being persuasive. Some people are better at um, making things entertaining and viral. And so there's people out there that can literally just go and, like, it's pretty easy. You can go and you can find real experts, go watch all their stuff, digest it, repackage it, and you can say the exact same things, but maybe you say it in just a better way. You have better hooks. You have a better editing team. And ironically, you probably become bigger and build a bigger following than the actual person that's an expert. And that's a real challenge in our industry, is cutting through that and knowing who's BS, which is a lot of people, and who's the real deal.
Yeah. And the thing I am noticing about the people who are BS, like who copy, is they seem to they surf trends very quickly.
Mhm.
Like they're the crypto guy. Now
Yep.
they're the Forex guy. Now they're the,
AI guy.
the Facebook group guy. Now they're the ad guy. And when I see that too often, I'm just like, okay, this guy is, he knows just enough to sound smart, but not enough to actually take you to success if you were to hire his or her services, right? And
Yeah.
that's one red flag I've seen. Another one is just too much damn name dropping, photo, with the, the branding in the back at some event with this famous person, that famous person. When, every now and then that's cool, but when people do it so much, I've never seen a very, very successful person who that's all they do is they take photos with other famous people. And I don't know, it just feels like they're overcompensating for for what they feel is the authority they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the
Um,
easiest ways, just to wrap that topic, one of the easiest ways, I think, to tell whether somebody knows what they're talking about or doesn't know what they're talking about is, one, to see how long they've been doing what they've been doing, because it is really easy to pop up an industry and kind of be a con artist and BS for a year, make a lot of money, and then people catch on to you're gone. It's very, very difficult. All my mentors, all my best friends in the space that are amazing what they do, we've all been doing it for 7, 10, 20 years. For me, it's been, over 10, but like, it's hard to fake things for a decade. Like, you do enough deals with people. Eventually, if you're not legit and don't know what you're doing, you screw somebody over, somebody figures it out, and you kind of, it's a small industry. So I think it's like length of how long they've been doing it. And then two, it's also the content they put out. So this is why I'm a huge fan of like long form podcasts. So you look at like Rogan or Lex Friedman or all these podcasts. Uh, it's very hard to fake being an expert for 3 straight hours unedited with questions. It's really hard to be on a massive stage and do an hour presentation and not know what you're talking about. So there's these formats that if you see people like in these formats, like, you have to be really, really good to fake people and to be fake on that format. More often than not, that's pretty much, if you can do that, you're competent to a pretty high degree.
Yeah, I agree. That's one really good way of thinking about it. Now, I'm just wondering, did you, like, before we got on this podcast, scope me out? Like, how long's Ken been around? I don't want to waste my time with a fake or anything, and then look at that. Like, do you do that often? Check out like the kind of people you want to be associated with.
Sometimes, I've been doing this for long enough, and I've met enough people that are legit and that are just totally full of it, that it's almost like a gut instinct that I get. Like, if I talk to somebody for 10 minutes, I can pretty quickly identify whether they're just either, one, like, have no idea what they're talking about, or two, maybe they know what they're talking about, but like, I just don't want to work with them because they're very egotistical. They're very flashy. It's all about them. It's all about bragging and flashiness and showing off. So for me, it's like, I think we chatted for probably like close to an hour almost. And it's like, it's, it's hard to have an hour conversation, a 30-minute conversation with somebody in that type of environment and not get a good decent read on that. So yeah, like occasionally I'll look people up and like not for you, but like occasionally I'll do it if it's in certain settings and it's like an introduction. But like usually if I met the person in person and we had a good conversation, hit it off, it's like I don't need to do a deep, it's not an audit, right? I don't need to do a deep dive on them.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I think also the kind of friends that they're surrounded with will give you a good hint on, okay,
Yep.
like these are like a lot of times I meet someone new, but then they're close to 5 people who I've known for years and trust. And that's already going to, give them, 10 extra points just for the company that they
Exactly.
surround themselves with. I got a question. Like as you're right now, you've got your various companies, and as you move forward, right, looking into the future, what shifts are you seeing in technology or in social trends or things like that you're kind of like hedging for or preparing for in terms of like keeping up with the times?
Yeah. It gets challenging on this stuff because it's tech is moving so fast, and just the entire all markets are moving very fast, that it's really hard to predict where things are going to be in 3 to 5 years. That's why like most investors, when they, you ask them, like when you see people, these startups come in to raise money and they give you 3 and 5 year financial statements, it's like you might as well just put on paper like we're going to make $1 trillion, because it's useless, right? It's like nobody's going to predict where they're going to be 5 years for a startup. I do think there's some things that we can be pretty confident in. AI, like I, I think AI is here to stay. I don't see it being a fad. I think it's too monumental in the technology. It's too deeply integrated. Everyone's pushing it. It's every big company's hopped on the bandwagon. Apple, when like Apple starts doing things, I usually take it kind of seriously, because Apple's not one to like jump into new markets. They're not going to chase fads and trends. They're integrating
apparently
AI.
Internally they already call it Apple GPT, right? Like I don't know
Yep.
what the marketing term is going to be, but
Yeah.
apparently their internal engineers already have an Apple GPT
Yep.
going.
Yeah, so they have an internal chat that they've built that they're already using. I know they're integrating a lot of AI machine learning, large language models into the new iPhone, the new iOS. And yeah, and apparently, like if you listen to like Mark Andreessen or different people that are really, really plugged in, like there's stuff that's already been developed that is light years ahead of what we have right now. It just hasn't been released yet, because it's almost too transformational. And so yeah, I mean, it's going to change everything. It's already changing a lot. What that looks like, I have no idea. All I do know is that you're better off knowing how to use AI and keeping a pulse on it than not. And so like there's going to be massive transformations in our economy and our workforce, our labor force, of, certain jobs that, are relatively unskilled or easy to replicate are going to be replicated or going to be replaced with AI very, very quickly. And that's the sad thing sometimes is you look at what's happening to the labor strike, for example, with in Hollywood. The challenge with going on strike like that is I know I get they had to do it. The problem though is now it basically forces the Bob Igers and these big, the Netflixes and the Disneys and stuff to invest more heavily in AI. Netflix just posted a job listing actually for a like head of AI. It's a $900,000 a year salary they just posted. And so it's like not surprising that when you take away labor, they're going to invest more in AI. And this is what happened with fast food workers, right? So it's like people, they didn't want to, McDonald's stuff didn't want to raise minimum wage. There's all this fighting between labor and McDonald's. So
now you got the kiosks.
Exactly.
The
so that's what happens.
Kiosks, right?
Walmart, same thing. It's like they're just going to invest that money into robotics and automation and replace humans. And that's the challenge. So yeah, I think AI is going to be, I think it's going to be massive. I think it's going to dramatically increase productivity. I think it's going to make everyone from content creators to media buyers to artists, whoever it is, like musicians, like it's just going to make if you know how to use it and use it effectively, it's going to turn people into basically superheroes to a degree.
I mean, literally, I think it's not even a year off, or someone might already be developing this, where you're going to have ads on every platform being controlled by AI, where it's, you can start with anything, and within certain parameters, it'll just keep refining the copy and the imagery until it hits a number that you're looking for, or until it hits its theoretical optimal performance. And you're going to come back a week later and it's going to look like a totally different ad. And you're just like, shit, I didn't know that would work. Right. That's so easily conceivable, like with the technology that's already out there. And I can't imagine how that's going to affect things when it comes to things like political campaigns. Like once AI starts telling the politicians what to say, how to say it, and they start playing the elections like, TikTokers are playing the algorithm, then like God knows where we're going, right?
They won't even need to. And so it goes a step further than that. They won't even have to record anything. What they'll be able to essentially do is use 11 Labs. They have their next level professional voice cloning that's in beta, which is almost perfect, and it can match inflection and emotion and those things. So what will happen essentially is you'll have Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or whoever will do a massive read on one of these platforms, dupe their voice completely, really accurately. They could do it for video as well. So go into those body scanner type high def cameras and recreate them. And
do you think that it'll be inconceivable, like within the next couple years from reality?
No, I think that'll be a reality. I think it'll be to the point where politicians will be able to do that. And then almost every single TV commercial and ad on Facebook will be hyper personalized to the person seeing it. Meaning if the targeting on the Facebook ads is for Second Amendment people and people interested in that, and that's what they care about and stuff, that what the politician is saying and how they're saying it, and even saying the state or city that it's in, it'll all be incorporated and hyper personalized. People forget marketers are always going to push boundaries. Marketers are always going to exploit things and ruin things. And this happened back over a decade ago. People forget about this. Early as a Facebook, there was a period of time where there was people in a black hat way were like scraping last names. They were doing, these print on demand t-shirt businesses, and they were essentially running ads where it showed like a t-shirt graphic and it said like, my last name's Finn. It'd be like Finn family rules or Finns are the best, something like that. And so you'd essentially people have matching the last name. They'd see a t-shirt with their last name on it, and that crushed for a very long time until Facebook cracked down on it. We're going to see that, but like times a million in the next, definitely next 3 to 5 years. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year we start seeing hyper personalized, at least ad copy and ad images. Videos might take a little longer, but eventually it'll be good enough that you could do video.
Yeah. It's not if, it's just when.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We've already seen it, right? We've already seen the famous Tom Cruise deepfakes. Like they're just too good. I mean, but that's not live. That takes quite a bit of work to do those deepfakes.
Yeah, it does.
But then it will become mass market available very soon. We've got to wrap this up soon, but I really want to get to this next part where we talk about like, if people are starting out, and when I say starting out, they've got a legitimate business, maybe they're doing $500,000 to $5 million, right, a year, but they're not leveraging social media. What are some great ways people can start to get themselves out, whether it's video, images, different platforms? And just to get more specific, let's say this person's a coach, right? They've got their clients, they're doing, they got some group coaching and stuff, but they're not regularly creating content on social media. Like, what would you say to someone like that? Good entry point.
The first thing I would say is that you just need to, I would worry. I think a lot of people they self-negotiate before they negotiate. Kind of like people that go into a salary negotiation and they think, I want to ask for $75,000 a year, but I feel like they're going to think that's crazy. So I'll start at 65. And so you're already negotiating yourself. I think a lot of people do that with social media where they're like, there's no way I can do 2 posts a day or a post a day. Therefore, I'm just not going to even try. Like if I can't be perfect day one, or I want to be day one, I'm not even going to try it. And a lot of people do that. And the reality is like, even if you're only posting 3 times a week or 2 times a week, it's still way better than posting 0 times a week, especially if you're a coach. If you're a person that, nobody wants to work with a coach that they never heard of before, that has no trust, no clout authority. Maybe some, if it's a personal introduction, they're really, really high level, but like 9 times out of 10, that person, if you're trying to pitch them, is going to look you up. They're going to check you out. They're going to see how, your credentials, your expertise. And so you really need to be active on social. You really need to be putting content out. Again, no matter, even if it's 1 post a day, 2 posts a week, 3 posts a week, you need to be doing it. I think the big challenge as well is the way people structure their content, right? So instead of just like batching, they're trying to shoot content sporadically. And because they're shooting sporadically and there's no schedule, they don't stick to it. because they miss one day because something came up and they miss another day and it came up, and that's not a habit. So what I do, and what a lot of the bigger people I know that do, is they do things like batching, right? So instead of just shooting content on a one-off basis, they basically have a database of ideas. As ideas pop up, they write it down. Then they have dedicated days of the week or of the month where they shoot all of their content. So they sit down, block out 4 hours, and they shoot 30, 40 videos. And then that goes to their editor, or even you guys do it. And then another day, it's all the editing. And then another day, it's all the scheduling. Another day, it's all the research and ideation. And because of the batching, you'll be consistent because you have enough content to go out for a while. So even if you miss 1 week of batch content shooting, you still have enough content to keep going out. So I would say that's a big part of it. And the last thing I would say is start doing podcasts, start doing shows, start doing trainings, because that's easy content, right? Like just us doing this right here, this is creating, almost an hour's worth of content for our team to pull from. So we can create a bunch of clips from this. Great. So that's a really easy way to get a lot of content, is just start doing podcasts. It's also, you should be doing it in general just to build your influence and be out there. But it's also thinking about, like, how can I multiply my content? How can I get multiple bang for my buck by doing one thing? And so yeah, highly recommend doing shows and podcasts and all that stuff.
I love what you're saying. You're 100% speaking my language. And I think that the more different people are saying this, the more the people who need to do this might actually get the point that this is the way to go. We got to wrap this up in just a second. Could you share one or two things that have been like what you might call inflection points? Like, you had an aha moment and then you started operating differently and it made a positive change in your business. For example, for me, one of my biggest inflection points was hire people and pay them what they're worth, even if it's hire people more skilled than yourself and pay them what they're worth. That for me was huge.
Yeah.
And now I don't even I used to be the guy editing all the videos. I used to be the guy who was carrying all the equipment and stuff. Now my clients are served a lot better because I've got editors that are better than me and make my stuff look and my client stuff look a lot better.
Yeah. So
did you think of anything off the top of the head for you?
Yeah, I mean, two for me. One is I'm pretty much similar to what you just said, which is the moment we started to stop thinking about doing everything ourselves and instead, who can we hire to do this for us? That was a game changer. And it's a tough choice to make, because essentially you're sacrificing for a bit, because you're going from keeping all the money to yourself to now you got to pay other people. So that's less money for you every month. But in the long run, even the mid run, like, it is so much more profitable. It takes so much off your plate. You can focus on other things. So the minute we started hiring and investing in team and building leadership structures in the companies, all those businesses started growing rapidly, like way faster than it was growing with us doing it. And that's not a coincidence. The other thing, and it's not necessarily like a 1 day moment, but just a way of thinking, was beginning to make sure I surrounded myself with smarter, more successful people. I told everyone, it's like, if you're in a room and you are the smartest, most successful person in that room, you're in the wrong room. There's only one way you can go down. You're going to get pulled down to their level. They're going to be pulled up a little bit, but you're going to pull down. And so I've spent the last few years really, really intentionally looking to build relationships with people I looked up to, people I think are amazing what they do, and getting in their sphere, getting in their orbit, so I can learn from them, do deals with them, do business with them. And that's been a game changer. You get so much smarter, you learn so many skills, you build your network, your influence, your authority so much faster. It's really a shortcut to success, is who you're surrounding yourself with, who you're spending time with, who's in your network. It's my network is way more valuable than anything else that I do. Right? If I lost everything and was able to keep that, I'd be good, because I could pick up the phone and make a few phone calls and get right back to where I am.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
we're coming up to the end, and I'll tell you what. Genuinely, the questions I asked you were for my own gratification, because you're at a position where you seem to be managing a lot of things because you've set up the right structures in place. I'm in a position where I have several companies, but not at the scale that you do. And I'm not sure how many of the listeners are going to be, looking for the same things I was, but I genuinely enjoyed this because I feel like I learned a lot from you. And I hope to, even though we're in different industries, but similar audiences, I hope to implement at least 2 things from this and actually put it in my calendar to do it. So thank you so much for that. And just to the audience who's listening, if you're on the podcast, I do recommend head on over to YouTube. There's a link down below. He's got a great home. I don't know if it's home studio. I'm pretty sure it's your home. You've got all the action figures back there and everything. Brings out personality, great studio setup. You should see this. Most of my guests are just on their webcams. You've got a proper studio setup. This was something that I want my viewers to also understand is what's the difference between having a decent home studio setup versus just a regular webcam. Have a look at it. Also find us on Instagram and Instagram and YouTube. Links are down below. And other than that, I'll see you in the next episode.